I've always believed that the most dangerous people in business aren't the loud ones. No, it's the ones who think they're the smartest in the room without ever bothering to check who's actually in it. My name's Max, and I've been with Colern for 8 years, long enough to survive 2 major restructurings, 3 failed product launches, and a global crisis. I'm not flashy, and I don't throw around titles, but trust me when I say, I know this company better than anyone else on the 12th floor. What most people didn't know, including my new boss certainly didn't know, is that I was also the silent investor who helped keep the company afloat during its darkest year. Back then, when the CEO begged for emergency funding to avoid a hostile takeover, I quietly stepped in. I used the inheritance my grandmother left me, and in exchange, I became the majority shareholder. But I never told anyone, not even my closest colleagues. My name appeared on paper in a holding firm, registered out of state. No spotlight, no ego. I just wanted the company to survive. Then came her, Emily Barker, newly appointed Executive Director of Operations. Tall, polished, with an MBA from Stanford, her charm was all spreadsheets and buzzwords. She introduced herself to the team like she was the second coming. All grins and promises. Change is coming, she said. Her smile was almost too wide, like she was trying too hard. We're going to take this company to the next level. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Change isn't always bad, right? But it became clear very quickly that Emily wasn't here to lead. She was here to conquer. She started making cuts, first to the admin team, then to product development. People who had been here for years were suddenly no longer aligned with the company's vision. And every team meeting, Emily made herself the hero. She loved the sound of her own voice, so much that I started keeping track of how many times she said, "Let me simplify this for you." By week 3, she still hadn't asked me a single question about my role. I'd built the analytics division from scratch, developed the tools that saved us over $2 million in losses last year, and led the most successful client migration in company history. None of that mattered to Emily. To her, I was just another name on an org chart. One Thursday morning, I was sitting at my desk, reviewing data models, when her assistant came in. "Emily would like to see you in conference room B," she said. No context, no explanation. I grabbed my laptop and walked down the corridor, the sound of my boots clicking against the marble tiles, the silence around me unusually heavy. When I entered the room, Emily was already seated at the head of the table, arms folded. The blinds were drawn, the lights too bright. "Max," she said without even looking up, "let's keep this brief." I sat down, calm but alert. Finally, she looked up at me. "I've been reviewing your department's output. Frankly, I'm not impressed. The tools you've built are outdated, and your team seems to lack initiative." I blinked once. Outdated, according to who? She shrugged. "Industry standards, metrics, gut instinct, doesn't matter. The bottom line is we're streamlining. I think you've plateaued." There was a pause. Then she leaned forward and said it. "You're replaceable. You add nothing here." The words didn't sting, not like she probably thought they would. Instead, something in me cracked, like a dam that had been quietly holding back water for far too long. I let out a short, sharp laugh. She frowned. "I'm being serious." "I know you are," I said, still smiling. "And that's what makes it funny." She leaned back, clearly annoyed. "If you find this so amusing, maybe you'd prefer to leave. We can formalize that today." I looked her square in the eye. "Then fire me." Her expression faltered for just a second. "Excuse me?" I leaned forward this time. "Fire me. If I'm so useless, let's not waste time. Get HR in here and walk me out." The room was silent. I could see her confusion starting to bloom. She hadn't expected defiance, certainly not from me. She thought I'd beg just like the others. But I had something she didn't know. And how fun the next meeting would be. Because Emily Barker had no idea who actually held the power in this company. No idea whose signature was needed to approve her next promotion, or her quiet removal. That day, as I walked out of the conference room with a polite nod, I wasn't furious. I was ready. Ready for the curtain to lift. Ready to show Emily Barker exactly who she just tried to erase. By Friday, word had started to spread. Not publicly, of course, but in offices like this, whispers move faster than emails. People noticed the way I left the conference room. Calm, composed, not a trace of worry on my face. That's the thing about silence. It unnerves the loudest people the most. Emily spent the morning in back-to-back meetings, walking through the halls like a man measuring his new kingdom. He didn't make eye contact. Not with me, not with anyone outside his hand-picked circle of junior executives. But I knew what he was doing, paving the way for something bigger. He had plans, ambitions. And in his mind, I was a loose end. Someone to be tied off before the board's quarterly strategy session. Too bad he hadn't done his homework. I got a call from Michelle Coburn, head of legal, and someone I trusted for years. Max, she said. I reviewed the latest board prep file. Emily submitted a proposed restructure plan, and your name's not in it. I raised an eyebrow. She's trying to erase a whole division, or just edge me out entirely. But here's the part she really screwed up, Michelle said. She listed the majority shareholder approval as pending. I smiled. Of course she did. She doesn't know it's me, does she? No, Michelle replied. And I have no plans to tell her. There was a pause. Then she added, Max, you could stop this today. I don't want to stop it, I said. I want her to walk right into it. Because the truth is, women like Emily don't learn through words. They learn through consequences. And hers is coming. By the time the next board meeting rolled around, Emily was on a mission to present her vision for the company. She had a new restructuring plan ready, complete with buzzwords and pie charts, and she was all but convinced that she would charm the board into approving it. She'd probably even convinced herself that I was just a blip on her radar, someone she could toss aside without a second thought. What she didn't know was that I had already been working behind the scenes. In the hours after our little conversation in the conference room, I'd contacted every key figure who mattered. The legal team, the investors, the board members, people who had known me for years but had no idea about the quiet hand I held in the company. I'd been planting the seeds of a storm, and I was going to let it brew until it was too late for anyone to do anything about it. As I made my way to the boardroom that morning, I couldn't help but smile. I had no intention of being the loudest one in the room. I didn't need to be. I was playing a different game. The boardroom was filled with all the familiar faces. People who, over the years, had come to rely on me. They knew my quiet strength, my steady hand, even if they didn't know the full extent of my involvement. The board members shuffled papers and took their seats, the air thick with the usual tension before a big presentation. Then Emily walked in, head held high, clearly feeling the weight of the moment. She'd probably rehearsed her speech 100 times, and it was all business as usual. She flashed a smile at the room, her usual enthusiasm on display. All right, everyone, let's get started, she said, flipping through her presentation slides. We've all seen the new company restructure proposal, and I'm confident that these changes will propel us into a new era of growth. She clicked through her slides, explaining how the company would evolve under her leadership. As she spoke, I sat back in my seat, arms folded, watching her with a quiet amusement. She had no idea the trap she was walking into. Halfway through the presentation, Emily's face suddenly froze. She glanced at the screen, then back at the room, confusion flickering across her features. Wait, what's this? She muttered under her breath. The room fell silent as she scrolled through the next slide, her fingers trembling slightly. She stopped and blinked, clearly not expecting what she was seeing. There, projected on the screen in front of the room, was the approval signature of the majority shareholder, me. The document I'd had Michelle leak was a resolution that nullified her proposed restructure. It was simple, effective, and, to her, utterly devastating. The room gasped. Emily's eyes darted nervously around the table, searching for some kind of explanation. But there was no escape. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, glancing at one another, some even taking notes. I leaned forward, breaking the silence. You were right, Emily. Change was coming, but not the kind you expected. Her mouth opened and closed, unable to form words. She tried to regain control, tried to spin it, but the damage was already done. This isn't how this works, she stammered. This is a mistake. I shook my head, smiling calmly. No, Emily, this is exactly how it works. You wanted to change the company, but you forgot one important thing: who's actually in charge. I motioned to the screen. You've made a lot of enemies in a very short time, and I think you'll find it difficult to move forward when the very person whose signature you need is standing right in front of you. The room was now completely still. Everyone was waiting for Emily to respond, but she just stood there, lost for words. The confidence she had walked in with evaporated in an instant. I could see the realization dawning on her, the understanding that her future at Collern was now out of her hands. The chairman, a seasoned man named David Jacobs, cleared his throat. Well, this certainly changes things. His voice was heavy with the weight of the decision that had just been placed in his lap. Emily, I think we need to have a serious conversation about your future with this company. Emily's shoulders slumped. Her earlier composure shattered. She tried to argue, but it was no use. Her fate had already been sealed. As the meeting adjourned and people began to leave, I stayed behind. Emily, now visibly rattled, turned to face me. You think this is funny? She spat, her voice low and angry. I gave her a cool smile. No, Emily, I think it's necessary. You'll regret this, she threatened. Not as much as you will, I said before turning to leave the room. As I walked out of the building, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about restoring balance. The company had always been my baby, and no one was going to come in and tear it apart without facing the consequences. By the time the news hit the media, Emily had been quietly removed from her position, and the company was preparing for a more sustainable restructure, one that prioritized long-term growth and stability. I had no intention of becoming the face of the company again. I preferred to stay in the background, where I could continue to guide Collern with the wisdom of experience, without the drama of leadership. But one thing was clear. Emily had learned the hard way that power isn't always what it seems. It's not about the title on your business card or the name on your door. It's about knowing who really holds the reins, even if you're never the one who's asked to lead. And as for me, well, I was already looking ahead to the next challenge, with the quiet confidence of someone who'd learned how to play the long game. In the end, the company was stronger, and I was finally at peace. What do you think Emily's biggest mistake was? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear how you would have handled this situation.